Welcome to episode 265 of the Ski Podcast, and thanks for joining us, listener. I am your host, Iain Martin, and today we're going to be chatting to one of the founders of the British tech firm Carv, the Wearable Ski Coach, and finding out about one of the world's great ski resorts, Whistler Blackcomb in Canada. We also have snow reports from an exceptionally good start to the season in Europe. But before we meet today's guests, I'd like to thank Tyrol, Austria, for sponsoring the Ski Podcast and making this winter's episodes possible. If this is your first time listening, you've missed out on some great conversations already about Tyrol. We've already covered Innsbruck, Ischgl, Tyrol West, San Johann in Tyrol, and the Ski Welt area in previous episodes, with more to come. I highly recommend you catch up with these. I found them really interesting to record and to learn about the different areas and the Lebensgefühl, that Austrian way of life that connects them all together. We'll be discussing the ski Jewel or ski jewel area in next week's episode, but let's focus on this week. And let's start by introducing my guest today. I am delighted to welcome Lauren Everest from Tourism Whistler. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Are you literally in Whistler at the moment?
I am. I'm in my office in Whistler Village.
Oh, and can you see any snow out of your window? I know it's quite early in the morning for you.
So I don't have a window in my office, but on my drive in this morning, there was some wet snowflakes landing on the road.
Right. Secondly, if you listen to episode 260, you may recognise his voice. That interview was recorded live at the London Snow Show. So it's a real pleasure to be able to welcome Alex Jackson, co-founder of Carv, to the podcast, without a band playing in the background. Hi, Alex. How are you going?
Hi, Ian. Very good, thank you. I'm calling in from London in Vauxhall, where our office is, but clearly no snow at the moment in London.
Maybe there were a couple of snowflakes last week, possibly in London. It has been quite cold.
I think so, but most of our team are out in Innsbruck and kind of traveling all over the world now. So we're getting a lot of footage, a lot of awesome stuff coming in. So we get to live vicariously, even if we don't get a ton of snow ourselves.
Right. A question I do always like to ask my guests at the top of the show is, when did you ski or snowboard last? Lauren, you are in a ski resort. I know it opened, maybe Blackcomb opened 10 days ago, something like that. Have you had a chance to get on the mountain yet?
I have not been on the mountain yet this season, no. But hopefully in my near future.
So when was the last time you got to ski then?
It would have been last spring, last April, at the end of the season.
Okay. And what about yourself, Alex? You said some of the team are out in Innsbruck at the moment. When were you last on snow?
So I was lucky. I was in Hintertax 2 weeks ago, and it was absolutely perfect conditions. So we had some early access, which was amazing, and really perfect bluebird. Still very good snow for this time of year. It's been amazing, actually, that part of Europe. So
I'm very excited. I'm going to be going out to St Anton in about 2 weeks now, something like that. And it has, as you mentioned, Alex, been a really positive week and positive start in the Alps. If you listen to episode 264, you'll have heard Simone from Tyrol West reporting snow down to 850 metres in the Tyrol. And that was followed up by another 30 to 60 centimetres of snow earlier this week. It's been cold since then, and the forecast is for it to stay cold, with another band of snow coming across the Alps this weekend and into next week. Both Tignes and Val Thorens opened last weekend, and our regular snow reporters, Floss Cockle and Alex Irwin, were in each of those two resorts. So let's hear what they thought.
Hi, this is Floss from FreeFlo Ski, bringing you the snow report from Tignes and Val d'Isère. And I have to say that it's probably one of the best starts to the season since COVID that I have seen, since 2021, when the lifts didn't start. Now, we've really benefited from the cold temperatures and winter-like conditions. Above 2,000 metres, we've had temperatures of -13. And with the fresh snowfall over the weekend and at the beginning of the week, we reported about 60 to 90 centimetres of fresh snow on north-facing slopes, with the south-facing slopes a little bit less. Now, with 81 pistes open at the moment, which is about 50% of the resort of Tignes and Val d'Isère, we are running some great conditions. The pistes are really super quiet and heroic and crunchy snow. What can I say? The snow cannons have been blasting out with the artificial snow, making a really good base, and all east and north faces are completely covered and loaded with fresh snow. However, if you are skiing off-piste, and there is still a shallow base, especially on south-facing slopes. So just be warned, as there's a few rocks and sharks out there. So just ski with caution. Now, as I mentioned before, slopes have been super quiet and the sunshine is coming back. So my advice to you, if you can, just get out here as soon as you possibly can. You will not regret it. So what can I say? For Tignes and Val Thorens, the whole area will be open next weekend. And I just want to wish you a great winter and happy sliding.
Hi Iain, Alex from 150 Days of Winter with a snow report from the Grand Premiere opening weekend at Val Thorens. But before we do, the Eye in the Sky will give us a traffic report for Saturday the 22nd. The time is 8:30 in the morning and the traffic is tailed back from Val Thorens all the way to Lemonweir, about 10 kilometres. The reason for the traffic? Parking management. Every year, when good snow is reported, every skier in France heads to Val Thorens for their opening weekend, and chaos ensues. Val Thorens, you could do better. But enough about the roads. What about the piste? Well, about 1 metre of snow at the summit and fresh snow on all the piste. It was almost perfect for all that ventured up there. The Cime de Caron cable car was functioning after its hiatus last season, and the new fast-node lift improved access to the top of Arel. As I record this report, another 60 centimetres has started to fall. Anyone who's thinking on an early season holiday will be in for a great time. If you see someone on the piste of the Three Valleys with pink hair and a pink jacket, feel free to come and say hi. Follow me on my YouTube channel or even buy some merch. And until my next snow report, ciao.
Another of our regular snow reporters, Alex Armand, who normally updates us on the conditions in Les Alpes, has been doing some early season instructing in Cervinia in the Aosta Valley in Italy, and she sent us this update.
Hi, this is Alex from Tip Top Ski Coaching here in Cervinia this week. We've had over 30 centimetres of fresh snow down in the village at the beginning of the week, and now we are back to blue skies and sunshine and superb conditions. We're skiing all the way back down to the village at the moment, and day by day more and more runs are being prepared and open. The temperatures are very cold, allowing the resort to make lots of snow as well as the fresh snow falling. So just a perfect start to the 2025-26 season.
Right, a little update on Team GB. After Laurie Taylor's fourth at Levy, the men's slalom and Obergurgel saw Billy Major finish top of the Ritz in 17th. This weekend sees the first freestyle events with ski and snowball big air in Secret Garden in China. This is actually going on while we're recording, but Maisie Hill and Katie Ormerod qualified in 18th and 21st place respectively. And tomorrow, Kirsty Muir, who finished 5th in the ski big air at Beijing in 2022, will be competing in her event. I actually interviewed Kirsty last week about her journey back from her ACL injury and almost a year out before she came back to win her first World Cup in teen in March. That conversation will be coming out soon as a special episode in January. Right, if it's okay with you, Lauren, I'm going to turn to Alex first, as I'd like to follow up on the chat I mentioned we had in episode 260. Then we were speaking at the London Snow Show. I wondered, Alex, how you found the show. How did it go for you and the Carv team?
So the show was amazing. We love getting out in person because there's so much in terms of curiosity, questions about our product, and even for our team, a chance just to get in front of real skiers, experience, how our customers found the products, feedback, things they'd like us to change, things they loved, things they changed in their skiing. Obviously, we're an improvement product. It's amazing to hear people's improvements and what they unlocked with Carv. But mostly it's nice to get sort of off the internet in the digital world and get in front of real people. And I think there's not a great many snow events, and we love going to the ones that we can get to. So we absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a fantastic event. And as you say, there is only one consumer show in the UK. Well, actually, I suppose there is a Northern show, which is gathering a bit of momentum. But really good to see so many people there. I think actually at this point, it might be useful for listeners who are not familiar with the Carv if you could give us a brief intro into what we're talking about and how it can help skiers.
Yeah, of course. So look, I'll start with the problem because I think that's the best way to start. Most skiers learn to ski with lessons, and at the point they can get by and they can go around with their friends or their family, they sort of stop getting lessons and they start to ski around and learn just by skiing and trying stuff. And this is actually, it's a pretty good way to learn for some people, but largely our progress really does slow down, and we all tend to get stuck in various sort of comfort zones and plateaus. So Carv is a digital ski coach. It's a technology product. It's a wearable. You click it onto each boot, and it's got little motion sensors, and it detects how you're skiing, and it's able to give you feedback and data so that you can change your skiing. And so the real value it unlocks for people is if you're skiing with your family for a week, or you're maybe lucky enough to ski more than that, you can actually get feedback and change your skiing all while you ski around. And it doesn't matter where you go, if you go into powder or moguls or on groomed terrain. But the amazing thing is you can actually get that feedback loop again. You can start improving.
Oh, so you mentioned, like, I know how it works because I have a Carv and I've used it quite a lot. But you mentioned you have these sensors that you clip onto your boots. I mean, typically I clip mine onto the power strap on my boots. But that must have a lot of tech in it to be able to, we'll come on to the data that you can produce from it. But what kind of information is it measuring as you're skiing along?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it's basically like the foundation of it is to measure the movement of each foot and also the force and acceleration going through each foot. So that's what we have to work with. And because we have that, we can look at things like the edge angle of each ski, the rotation of each ski, and even the force, up and down, for example. So if you're a really good skier, you're actually very active up and down, and you're unweighting and weighting your skis a lot. And we can detect that as well. And what all that means is when you're skiing around, this product can form a very, very good picture of how your skis and boots are moving. And if we can do that, we can actually diagnose some really common or foundational issues that are stopping you getting to the next level and making more confident, exciting, or maybe perhaps more controlled turns that you'd like to be making.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually at this point, maybe it might be useful to take you back a little bit, because long-time listeners might recall I interviewed your co-founder, Jamie Grant. That was a couple of years ago now, so we probably have a lot of new listeners who may not know the story. I wondered if you could give them an insight into how the company started.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been around for a while now, about 10 years. I think just the technological challenge to make this product work, to make it really good, that has taken a lot of time, a lot of data. So the very early days was Jamie was the original founder, and Pruth. Jamie's a financial economics PhD, so he's really good at things called time series analysis and working out what happens with data over time. And instead of going into the city or doing some finance and banking, Jamie loved skiing. Like many of us, he's an adult learner. And so he wanted to use some of those tools to try and teach basically himself and other people to ski. And ultimately, it's an experience that we're all quite familiar with. If you're not the best in the group, you can sort of end up playing catch up most of the time. And he wanted a way to stay with his friends, but also use some of these sort of modeling and data science tools to make him better at skiing. And that was the original purpose.
I love that. I love how, you can take learnings from completely different areas. And, one thing you mentioned several times there is the data. I think, when you're using Carv, it's recording data multiple times per second. And it's the ability, the understanding how to use that data that's really made all the difference. Every time I check in with someone from Carv, you update me on how much data you've got to work with. And I think last time it was like 1 billion different terms. Is that around where you are at the moment?
Yeah, I actually looked the other day because I wanted it for a different purpose, but we have 1.03 billion turns in our database, which is actually pretty insane now. We actually have to buy a lot of storage space. You can imagine, to maintain that database is getting quite expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got all of that data, turn data. And, when I ski with the Carv, and I think when most people ski, they're generally looking at like an algorithm that scores you for how well you're skiing, your ski IQ. Types of ski IQ will come onto that. But could you explain how that ski IQ has been calculated? Because you've got all of these terms, but a lot of them have been analyze to assess what the best turns are. Is that right?
Yeah, basically. I think that the most important thing Carv can do is give you an objective view of how you're skiing, so it can tell you when you're improving. There's nothing more rewarding than being better and then being told you're better. It's a really satisfying process. And to do that, we need to be really accurate. And to be accurate, what we essentially do is we take all of that data on your motion and acceleration, and we break it down into components that we think are important moves in skiing. So a good example is like, how much are you getting on your edge angle for carving? How similarly are your skis moving? And are your skis rotating at the same rate, or is one going faster than the other? These would be like common metrics that we're using. And what we tend to find is in good skiers, there's a certain pattern of like really smooth, symmetrical, consistent skiing that gets like quite high edge angle in carving, or in powder might be like very consistent floaty turns. And in less good skiing, we see different patterns. Now, our job to make the ski IQ system is for the algorithm to understand what data comprises bad skiing, and what data is great skiing. And to do that, we have this training process, which is actually pretty cool, because we built a whole software product to do it, where people upload video data of themselves skiing with Carv. It's got the data from the sensors. And we have this little game that instructors play, and we literally we have a lot of instructors doing this now, and they're grading whether the ski on the left or the ski on the right is better. And they're grading all sorts of things like how steep the terrain was and what the conditions were. And if you go through that process enough, and we go through it, tens of thousands of times at every single level, the model itself learns what ground truth is. So, okay, when I see data like this is a bad skier. When I see data like this is a really good skier. And what we try and do with our algorithm and all of your data and everyone's data in the world is the algorithm tries to match as close as possible what a human instructor would have scored you. And that's sort of the simple description.
And to get an understanding of how it works, again, I know because I've used it. So it's recording all of this data as you're skiing along. You've got an app where you can review that, and you can review it in three ways, essentially, can't you? As you're going through your ski day.
Yeah. So a big part of what we try to do with the product is we don't really want to get in the way too much of your skiing. Skiing is amazing. It's awesome. We don't get to ski very often, so let's not make it really difficult and have loads of things you have to do. So most of the way that people use the product is they will track their skiing. They'll set off with their friends, they'll start Carv, leave it running all day long. It detects the chairlift, it detects when you're skiing, and it even cuts out the best bits of your turns, because those are really the bits we sort of want to be analyzed on. And it will sort of separate those out and say, hey, this was your best bit, and here's how you did. Now, you can choose if you'd like to do a little bit more improvement. You can start to get audio tips. And this is where the sensors are sending data to your phone, and your phone is then sending data to your headphones. And there's sort of a light version and a heavy version. And the light version is on a chairlift. It knows you're on a chair, and it will give you a little tip. So it might say, Iain, great job on the last run. On the next run, it looks like you are skidding your turns at the top. Let's try rolling onto both skis at the top of the turn. And then it will actually watch to see what you do. And on the next chairlift, it will try and notice if you improved. And if not, it will give you a different tip, but it will try and keep you on that area.
And as a skier, essentially, you can choose, which one of those are routes you want to go down, how much feedback you want to have. You could just ski around all day and see what happens at the end of the day. And I think there have been a few updates for this year, because personally, I love the Ski IQ thing. You mentioned with the instructors, it sounds like a sort of gamification thing with them, getting them to, make their decisions on who's skiing best. But there's so much gamification within Carv itself. With the Ski IQ, when I go out to a resort, I try and get the best ski IQ I can, and then see how I've scored, for that resort for the season so far. Or maybe I might have to drill it down to the week so far, or maybe I'll have to drill it down to the day so far, to see how far I can move up those rankings. Because you've got like a league table for everywhere, like globally, by country, by resort, by run as well, I think maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of interesting seeing how people react to it. I think most people like to compete against themselves and not necessarily others. I think a lot of us aren't like the best skiers in the world, and we don't get a chance to ski that much. So I think number one, the value of Ski IQ is I can compete against myself. And that's the really addictive part. But there are chances to go and win at a leaderboard. I mean, I'm lucky to get to ski really early in the season. So actually, I have this period where I do really well in some resort that's quite small, and I'll be quite high on the leaderboard in that resort. And then over the season, I'll slowly drop down inevitably. But for that 2 weeks, I feel pretty good.
The Ski IQ itself, then, I know you've got an update this year. There have been a few changes in that update. In fact, I would recommend listeners listen to episode 260 when we talked about your team who were doing testing in South America during the summer. But I noticed, I was looking through some of the updates for this year, and one of the, I guess, the bits that stood out to me was that you can now do any kind of run, maybe let's say a whole run, and it's going to pick your 8 best consecutive turns, because it used to be that you had to do, I think, maybe 10 really good turns in a row, or minimum of 10 really good turns in a row. So I find myself just doing really short bits, trying to really focus hard and being really good over like 10 turns to get my score as high as possible. But now you don't need to, it'll take your whole run and the best elements of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Our goal isn't to disrupt your skiing. Our goal is to try and fit in and be almost invisible in your ski day. And we had this thing where more and more people realize that actually, if I am skiing 15 turns, maybe 10 were really good and 5 were kind of okay. And so people would start to stop at, when you're skiing really well, people would be like, hold on, I better count. How many am I on? Okay, I'm probably on 10 because that was the minimum that we had to get a ski IQ. So I'll stop. And actually, it was this crazy behavior that really it's good that we changed this, but we had this behavior where people would ski 10 really great turns and then stop and try and capture it. And actually,
yeah, guilty, I'm afraid, Alex.
I mean, I think we all were. That was the trouble. Once you start to care, you start to try and find all these advantages. But it really breaks the flow of skiing. And God help the people in the group with a Carv skier who was stopping every 10 turns. It sort of broke the group dynamic. So it's a really big fan favorite. People asking us to do it all season, and I think our team absolutely love it. And we've released that this year. So you just ski top to bottom now, and then it will grab your best 8 turns automatically. It's always in your favor.
I'm also right in saying that somehow I don't know whether you get a different ski IQ for different types of runs, like off piste or on piste or moguls, or whether it takes that into account somehow. It's going to either do you have to input in advance, what type of terrain you're on, or will it detect it?
Yeah, good question. For years, we were really well optimized for groomers skiing and carving, and it was just a lot more manageable a problem. It's pretty difficult to score technique, even in the flat conditions like a groom's run. Last year, we implemented terrain detection and all terrain, so the algorithm would adapt to all terrain. But we had one algorithm that was trying to adapt to all these different terrains. This year, we pushed that a lot further. And what we've done is we actually looked at the individual techniques required for moguls, powder, carving, even parallel and short turns, which you would use on like steeps or maybe something a bit more like a couloir or something, if you're a bit more adventurous. And those techniques are all different. And so we basically thought we probably shouldn't have one algorithm that tries to say it's good technique, because actually these are fundamentally different styles of skiing, different movement patterns. So we've built Ski IQ for each, essentially. It's still one Ski IQ system. You wouldn't really know the difference. I think that it has different things being weighted differently. You don't really need to worry too much about that. You just go and ski. It detects what terrain you're in. You don't need to press a button. It looks at your feet and it says, okay, this is mogul's turn. I'm seeing a lot of G-force. I'm seeing short turns. I'm seeing the edges are kind of moving similarly. And it can detect the terrain, and then it will score you with an algorithm that's tuned for that technique. And so our goal is really, you go and ski wherever you like. This system will try and make you better in the terrains you've skied in. And it means we can give you advice that's really tuned compared to some more general advice about edging and things like that. It's now tuned to say, okay, you're in moguls. Here's what you did wrong in moguls, and here's how to fix it.
Oh, I think that's a really great development. I'll be interested to try that one out. I also read that you've developed the community side of things. You talk about people skiing in groups together. last winter I went out on 2 different group holidays, and there were other Carv users on both of those trips. And you've got elements within Carv where you can, work together or see where you are on the mountain. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so there's increasingly more people with Carv now, and a lot of people have friends who use it. And actually, we wanted to have an experience where you could track each other, you could find each other on the mountain. So we've built a system where if you're friends with someone, you basically share your location with each other, and you can always see them on the map. You can find where they are, and then you can track them over time in your app. So if you went skiing in and we were friends, I will send you a friend request after this. So I shall await my reply. But I'll be able to see you creeping up the leaderboard in our friends leaderboard over the season.
Oh, cool, hopefully. So just I'll put a link in the show notes, but just remind listeners how much the Carv costs.
Yeah, so Carv is a subscription model. So it's £199 a year, and that's for unlimited use. But I think for a lot of UK skiers or potentially people who are skiing more like 1 week a year, we have £99 a year, which is like a pretty good, like I ski 1 week. This is a more reasonable cost for me compared to an all season package.
And, you mentioned, Carv has been going for 10 years now. And I think that it feels like it's hit a tipping point. Like I said, the group holidays I went on, there are other people who are using Carv as well. I see it on the mountain quite a bit. People sometimes come up to me as well and go, oh, see, you've got one of those. What's next for Carv then?
I think, honestly, next is continuing what we're doing, but making it simpler and easier for people to try it, and simpler and easier for people to improve with it. I think our goal is, there's no reason why most skiers out there couldn't be a little bit better in their skiing. And we know that when you're just even a little bit better, you unlock a new feeling or you unlock new terrain, and suddenly you get this whole new wave of love for the sport. And so we're not looking at expanding into other sports and doing, wild and wonderful things. We basically love the problem that we're working on in skiing. Our goal is to make it easier to try so more people can give it a go. It's obviously a new technology. It sounds a bit, bit scary or a bit weird. So I'm not quite sure what it'll be like. So that's our goal, just get people trying it. And then when they do, make it really easy to use so that everyone can put it in their ski day.
Well, I'll be trying mine again this winter, and I will report back, especially if my ski IQ improves. That's great, Alex. Thank you very much. We know now how to get better, so I'm going to turn to Lauren, if that's okay, and we're going to find out some more about one of the great resorts in the world to put those turns that you're improving into practice. Now, Lauren, this is a ski podcast. We have listeners from all over the world and lots of different ability levels. It is vaguely possible that some of them may not have heard of Whistler Blackcomb. So let's start off with some basics. I wondered if you could just let listeners know whereabouts Whistler is.
Sure. So Whistler is located in the Coast Mountains of British Columbia, Canada. To get here, you would fly into YVR International Airport in Vancouver. And then we are about a 2-hour drive up the Sea to Sky highway to get to Whistler.
Right, great. I have some friends who live in Vancouver and follow them on Strava, and I'm always very jealous because they're popping off to ski in Whistler, almost every weekend during the winter, just at a short transfer time then. Now, there might be, I was doing a bit of research before the podcast, there might be some debate about this. Whistler is definitely the biggest resort in Canada. Is it the biggest resort in North America as well?
Yes, Whistler Blackcomb is the biggest ski resort in North America. It has 8,171 acres of skiable terrain.
Yeah, I mean, if you're British or European, 8,171 skiable acres might sound like a huge amount. It may not mean that much to you. Where, do you have any idea what that might be in terms of, let's say, kilometers of piste?
I don't have a stat for the total kilometers of trails, but it's 2 side-by-side mountains. There's over 200 marked runs. There's 36 lifts to get you around, including the peak-to-peak gondola, which connects the alpines of the 2 mountains. And the longest run, just to give you some sense, the longest run here is the Peak to Creek run on Whistler Mountain, which is 11 kilometers long.
200 runs and, runs of up to 11 kilometers. Evidently, it's a big ski area, the biggest ski area in North America. You said those two mountains there. So one mountain is Whistler and the other one is Blackcomb.
Correct.
And this year, I think I'm right in saying that the resort is celebrating its 60th anniversary.
Yes. So Whistler Mountain is celebrating its 60th anniversary this year, and Blackcomb Mountain is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year.
I wonder if I could take you back. I mean, how did the resort start? So, 60, we're in 25 right now. Does that mean it started in 65? Is that right?
Correct. Yes. So, I should acknowledge that Whistler's located on the shared traditional territories of the Squamish Nation and Lil'wat Nation, who have inhabited these lands since time immemorial. But yes, the modern day history of Whistler actually began in the early 1900s as a summer destination. There were some pioneers from Maine in the United States who built a fishing lodge called the Rainbow Lodge on Alta Lake. And then the evolution of Whistler Blackcomb into a ski area started in the early 1960s when some Vancouver businessmen were looking to develop a mountain to host the Winter Olympic Games. The dream when Whistler was first developed was to develop an area to host the Winter Olympic Games. And so these Vancouver businessmen started the Garibaldi Lift Company, and they were trying to host the games. I believe it was in 1968. That Olympic bid failed. Whistler actually bid to host the games 5 times before it was finally successful in 2010. So they developed this ski area. The first lifts would have been the Creekside Gondola, which took people from the Creekside base in Whistler up to Red Chair, which at the time would have been a 2-pack. And then the Red Chair would take people up to the tree line, and there would be 2 T-bars up there for skiers to ski the Alpine. And that opened in the 1965-1966 season, and that's when it all began. We did not host the Olympics until 2010.
Yeah, 2010, the Vancouver Olympics. And I think Whistler itself hosted all of the snow and sliding events.
Yeah, so Whistler Mountain hosted all the Alpine ski events. And so those events took place on the Dave Murray Downhill and Franz's Run, which, skiers that come to visit today can ski those runs. And then, we also hosted all this sliding events at the Whistler Sliding Center, so luge, bobsled, and skeleton. And then we hosted the Nordic ski events and biathlon in Whistler Olympic Park, which is about 20 or 30 minutes south of Whistler.
And you still have a massive set of Olympic rings in the village, right?
Yes, there's a big set of Olympic rings at Celebration or Olympic Plaza, it's called now, which is in Whistler Village at the base of the mountains. And then there's also a set of Olympic rings at the top of Whistler Mountain, which is a great photo op for skiers.
And so it's your 60th anniversary, BC. What celebrations do you have planned?
So Whistler Blackcomb is planning to celebrate their anniversary all season long, starting with, they released a film earlier this month called Whistler Blackcomb 60 Seasons Deep, which pays tribute to the pioneers and community leaders and athletes and everyone that helped shape Whistler Blackcomb into what it is today. And then obviously the opening of Whistler Mountain, which happened last week on November 21st, the opening of Blackcomb Mountain happened first last week on November 21st. Lots of celebrations, live music, giveaways. And then Whistler Mountain opened yesterday, actually, on November 26th. Same thing, big celebration for opening. And then throughout the season, there's going to be more community events. There's going to be live music. There's some races, the Peak to Valley race, the World Ski and Snowboard Festival in April. So lots of events throughout the season to celebrate.
What's that Peak to Valley race?
Yeah, so that's another long-standing race here that happens on Whistler Mountain. And I believe they're celebrating, I should double check, but I believe they're celebrating their 40th or 45th anniversary as well. Just a long-standing ski race that's been held here in Whistler.
Is it one of those races where everybody starts at the same time and heads off for the bottom in one go?
Whistler Blackcomb describes it as it's the longest GS race of its kind on the planet, challenging teams of 4 to race down Whistler Mountain.
Oh, so it's a GS. That sounds like it's going to be hard work on the thighs. And I also read that for this winter, you've opened up, what's billed as the 7 Wonder Routes.
Correct. Yeah. So Whistler Blackcomb is launching the Wonder Routes this winter season as part of its 60th anniversary celebrations. And what they are essentially is a set of curated trails, routes, stops, waypoints that show off all the best elements of Whistler Blackcomb. So there's 7 of them total. And, there's like alpine samplers that take you on a tour of Whistler and Blackcomb's Alpine. There's a family-friendly route. There's a route that showcases apres. So yeah, lots of different options to choose from depending on what kind of ski experience you're looking to have.
Oh, and a good way to get to see lots of the resort. So I should say that, Whistler, we've already said it's the largest ski resort in North America. It is owned by Vail Resorts, so it's included in the Epic Pass.
Correct, yes. Whistler Blackcomb is a part of the Vail Resorts network. And you can ski here on an Epic Pass. And then there's also Whistler Blackcomb Pass options specifically as well.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many resorts covered now by the Epic Pass, and they've added on even more in Europe over this winter and over the last few winters. So it could be, Lister, that you're thinking about, I don't know, I guess you could do a week skiing in Crans-Montana and then go and ski over in Whistler. And if you bought yourself an Epic Pass, you're going to get all of that skiing for the one single price.
Correct. Yeah. The Epic Pass offers incredible value to skiers. The catch is you got to buy it early because it goes off sale. So it is a pre-commitment model. So actually the pass deadline for this season is coming up quick. It's on December 4th. So yeah, if you're looking to ski at any of the Vail resorts this winter, don't miss that deadline because it definitely offers significantly better value.
Well, timing of our conversation is really good then, because this will be published tomorrow, which I'll make to be Friday, the 28th of November. So listener, assuming you came into this fairly early on, you can get your Epic Pass. I'll put a link in the show notes as well so that you can see all of the different resorts that are covered by the Epic Pass. Just another question then about Whistler. It's obviously an international resort. What is the kind of split between, nationalities? I assume it's mainly Canadian, but I guess you get a lot of Americans going on holiday there. I have quite a few Australian friends who, go to Whistler every year. And, are there many Europeans going to Whistler as well?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that the biggest markets in Whistler, Canada for sure, especially within our province of British Columbia, lots of United States travelers, especially from states along the West Coast, like Washington and Oregon. And then our international markets would definitely be the UK, Australia, Germany, and Mexico.
Now, you mentioned that in the Seven Wonder routes, you've got a focus on après ski if you wanted to do that. How is the après ski in Whistler? Would you be as bold as to pick a favourite bar that you'd recommend people go to for a drink after a day on the hill?
Oh, yeah. There's a ton of options for après in Whistler. I think one of the things that makes Whistler so great as a ski destination is that we've got this beautiful pedestrian village at the bottom of Whistler and Blackcomb Mountains, and there's over 200 restaurants and bars and cafes to choose from in there. So lots and lots of options. If I had to pick one, I would probably pick the Garibaldi Lift Company, which is at the bottom of Whistler Mountain. It's got a huge patio. It's great for people watching. Great vibes, good food, good drinks. So that would be my recommendation. The Garibaldi Lift Company, or the GLC for short.
Right. If you're in, you're going to call it the GLC. Right then, listener, if you're going to Whistler this winter, look out the GLC and look out for Lauren sitting on the terrace there. That is brilliant. I'm going to put a few links into the show notes. The Peak to Valley race, the main website, the Seven Wonders route and other things, so you can find out more. It's fantastic, Lauren. Thank you very much. We're just going to move towards the close now. Listen, if you've enjoyed this episode, or even if you didn't like it, I would love to know. You can leave me a comment on Spotify, Instagram, or Facebook. Our handle is @TheSkiPodcast, or you can drop me an email to theskipodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on WhatsApp for exclusive material released ahead of the podcast. Look in the show notes for that link. Long-term listener, Matt Hayes, enjoyed the Bladon Lines episode. He said, such a great story, a must listen. And I agree, Matt. It is my best ever, in my opinion. Track it down. The biggest company in the UK, biggest ski company in the UK in the 1990s, out of business by the end of that decade. That was episode 252. I'll put a link in the show notes. Wayne Reeder said, hi, Ian. Really enjoy your shows, guests, and great information. Thank you, Wayne. He also asked about the Ski a la carte pass. Now, This gives discounts on French passes, and it kind of depends how often, when, where you go, but it can be good value. And Wayne, I'm going to try and cover this in a future episode so we can give it a bit more depth. Phil Shotton said, long-time listener of the podcast, I enjoyed them in the closed season. They help keep me in the ski mood. He also mentions he enjoys the videos on the Skipedia YouTube channel, especially the one about skis and how to carry them. And if you want to hear Al and my views on how to carry skis properly, I'll put a link in the show notes to that. There are now 283 episodes of the Ski Podcast to catch up with. And when I looked this morning, the stat said that 175 of those have been listened to in the last week alone. Look, I've already mentioned lots of our previous episodes during this podcast. Sometimes there's a narrative linking different episodes together. Sometimes you might just want to find out more about a particular destination or get some insight into the latest kit. I suggest you go to theskipodcast.com, have a search around the tags and categories, and you're bound to find something interesting to listen to. I can also tell you that in the last week, around 60% of our listeners are in the UK, 20% in the States, and everyone else spread as far and wide as Serbia, Brazil, and Algeria. Now, in the meantime, if you'd like to help the podcast, I have just one request for you this week, and this will save you money as well as help the podcast. And that is, if you're booking ski hire this winter, go to insportrent.com, use the code SKIPODCAST when you book. You will get an additional discount off whatever the online price is. And to make it even easier, you can take the link in the show notes and your discount will be automatically applied and knocked off your bill. Right. For now, I'd like to thank my guest today. Lauren, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And Alex.
Thanks so much, Ian. It was a pleasure.
I would also like to thank Tyrol for sponsoring the podcast. And finally, listener, thank you for joining us wherever in the world you're listening right now. And until next time, goodbye.